live, whether I'm ready or not. And I'm going to say over here, go live, ready or not. Because what I do know is that I'm running behind. And it is a rainy day, and on rainy days my internet can be kind of funky. But I love rainy days. Except for the dogs don't like to go out too much. Putting on my footies, and I am. Is it? It doesn't say that I am live. I don't know why that is, but I see that it says end. So, in order for it to say end, it must have began. So, good morning to you. Good morning, beautiful people. And good morning, beautiful people. How are you today? Um, I had some stuff that I needed to get done before I came on, and I managed. I did manage, and so I am excited for that. And you guys, today is Thursday. A grand rising to you, Walker. I missed you yesterday. Um, yeah, today is Thursday, so today is the day that I get to talk to Dr. Brown, and excited about that. He always anytime I ask him, can we talk about, he's always like in a yes mode. And I love that. I had this girlfriend who I used to hang out with back in the day. And, one of the reasons why I think we were so good together at the time is that we were always in yes mode to one another. She would say, "Do you?" And I would say yes even before she got it out of her mouth good. We figure it out once we got there. Now, I will say that, the reason why I could do that, I was younger. Well, younger than I am, of course. Yesterday I was younger. Hell, whatever. But one of the reasons why I could do that is usually she wanted to go out, like, happy hour. I loved doing a good happy hour. But I'll tell you this about me. I am not a big drinker. I think that's another reason why she loved hanging out with me. I'm not a big drinker. I can monitor myself. Now, I can have two, and I'm just telling y'all this. I can have two drinks, and then by the time I get to the third drink, I no longer have the capacity to make um a good sentence, a good coherent sentence. So I know to cut myself off with the two drinks, right? I knew that. So, but what we would do, one of the things, all I had to do was make sure, whatever, I got there, and I never had to worry about anything such as money or anything like that. Wherever we went, we just show up, and I would there was a couple of times, there was one place I used to go to, and every time somebody bought you a drink, they would put a shot glass in front of you. And good bartenders keep track of things like that. So they know how many you have waiting on you. And so I would always have, because I'm such a nice person, I would always have a bunch of excess drinks. They stopped sitting mines in front of me because it sort of dissuaded people, like, oh, she's got three up there now waiting on her, and she doesn't drink that much. But what my girlfriends would do is they would cash in on my drinks. They would drink whatever it was that I was drinking. Or if somebody ordered something, I ordered what I knew they drank. So I used to, it used to be one of those yes things, always just um, just going out to hang out, to be social, all of those good things. Now, I will say that I love the energy of yes. Yes is an amazing thing. And I can honestly say that since the pandemic, my yeses have been much less frequent about everything. You guys know that I was telling you a couple of weeks ago that I don't even drive like I used to. It's, when especially like now in the winter time and all that stuff. Somebody asked me to go someplace and it's like, and what time did you say? And where is this? And going through 100 different things. So I realized that even for me, and I have to look at that. But whereas I used to be the yes girl, always like up and, let's go, let's do this. I have not been that person. And so I really need to give that some thought. Maybe it is that my priorities have changed. Maybe there's so much that is shifting in my world that I am not in yes mode. I don't know what that may mean or how that looks, but I really do need to because I'm sitting here praising Dr. Brown because whenever I say I want to talk about, bowel movements, he says yes, like gives me a thumb up and says yes, and I love yes. And I just am not as I haven't been doing yes like that. So I've gotta, I guess that is give me some things to think about. And I wonder if everybody else is like that. And if our yeses get fewer and far between. I remember Marianne Williamson in her book, and I might have read this to you guys at one time, that Enchanted Love book, and she was talking about how she lived downstairs from this couple, and she was like, they were just they didn't look like nothing, right? Just a frumpy little couple. But she said that they lived up over her, and when she would see him, she would just, be like, She said, she said that they would be at it all day long, just, in the bed, just going at it. And she said that one day she asked the question. She said, because, she said they'd be loud and they getting it in, and she says the woman always said, no, no, like in the midst of it, no, no. And she says, I just wonder if that woman would just one day say, yes, yes. I mean, and it makes you, I remember, I think was it yesterday or day before, I was talking about when I push past my resistance, most of the time I have a really good time. And so what I try to do is pay attention to the things that I'm resisting and then decide to, to do things anyway. Well, there's a lot that goes into that, into the decision making. Some things come out and some things are put in. So, being in a position, hey Brooklyn, good morning to you. and so sometimes we have to, think about what it is that we're resisting and why. What's the reason behind it? I'm often thinking about that things that I tell people all the time. What's before you is for you. And a lot of times we don't want to accept, oh, this is my plot, or this is what I'm doing, or whatever that might be. Sometimes we are in that resistance just, this thing of just resisting for the sake of resisting, I think. And I don't know that I value that at all for myself. And so just it just becomes a question a question that any of us can ask ourselves. Who is it that I desire to be? How is it that I desire to be? How is it that I desire to show up? And so for me, for me, I get to make those decisions. Walker says, my yes is definitely different now. My no's are anoint now. My no is anointed. In other words, I'm more selective about what I do say yes to. Yeah, so I don't have I am friends with the word no, right? I don't just say, I don't say yes to everybody or everything. I used to have a mantra that I used with myself, Walker, that no is a powerful thing. I remember one day deciding that the mistake that I made was giving people my phone number in the first place, right? So when you say no in the first place, it cuts off all the subsequent stuff that comes after that. If you just learn how to say no, right? And so it's not personal, it just is no. And so, I'm very, very like and much into owning my no's and saying no to the things that I don't want. But am I saying no just because the question is why am I saying no? If it is out of fear, I'm not a fan of fear. If it is out of like just plain resistance, if it is this idea, because sometimes it is isolation now. It is like thinking about, I don't need to. I was looking. Let me. I'm gonna pivot for just a second. Just a second. I watched the President Biden's State of the Union address. Thought it was excellent, right? Just an excellent all around speech. I thought the way that he played the audience, the Congress, the everybody, I thought he did an excellent job. Excellent, right? But as I looked around that chamber, I counted maybe 3-4 people with masks on. And I was just thinking to myself like, I'm like that. I'm like one of those things like you peek in the room and think, ooh, this doesn't look like someplace that I want to risk my life to be. And so, and is that a fear thought, or is that an isolationist thought? Is that a safety thought? What kind of, so I recognize that, that there are a lot of times I'm standing in resistance to things based on the condition that we are living under right now. So for me, it's a combination of reasons why I say no. It's a combination. Sometimes it is, I don't even want to be bothered. I trust my instincts. I trust my feel. I trust my level of attractiveness or or desire or need, I trust those things a lot more now. And so I feel as though I'm able to say, yeah, no. I've seen this. I've seen whatever that is enough times to know that I ain't gonna be missing anything by saying no. But but yes, I mean there are some things that I probably could do that I still don't say yes to. Um yeah, yeah. And I realize that some of those are my own judgments, and what I get joy out of is very different than what it used to be. So there is a yes, there is a sacred yes, and then there's a sacred no. So I get that. Thank you for sharing that, because I think it one of the things that I love to do is to you know to know thyself, if nothing else, know thyself. um yeah, it's that's a good and a beautiful thing. Today is Thursday, and I get to read Raymond Anderson's morning, the daily guides. He was probably sick of me reading these things. But nonetheless, I am thrilled and honored to be able to read them out of the Science Mind magazine for this month, February. One of the things that Dr. Brown and I have committed to do on Thursdays is, as part of our talk around medical stuff, we are also bringing in this idea of African history, not just Black history, African history as well. So it encompasses so much more to pull off of that richness. And so I'm thrilled, and that could be the diaspora. It doesn't just have to be off of the continent of Africa. It could be anywhere. It could be talking about Toussaint Louverture, or it could be talking about, anything from anywhere. It's just good. Um, but that made me think about something else that I wanted to pull out. So, what the daily guide for today, Raymond titles it, "Why is the Sky Blue?" Why is the sky blue? And his first quote comes from Charles Dublier. I'll say it that way. This sounds good rolling off my tongue. Dublier. I don't know if that's the way it is pronounced, but that's the way I'm going to pronounce it. Dublier. And so the quote is, "I set out to discover the why of it and to transform my pleasure into knowledge." And then from Ernest Holmes, Living Without Fear, he says, "All evolution is an awakening and development of a greater possibility, resulting in an unfoldment of an inherent potential." All right, so here we go. This is what Raymond wrote. Reverend Raymond Anderson. He says, "Part of growing up and learning involves an endless barrage of children's questions. Many a parent has become exasperated with the onslaught of questions rather than jumping on into the mystery with the child. If we do so, we would lessen the likelihood of becoming adults who ask why, but really don't care about the question or the answer. For example, we may ask why there is racism or sexism in the world, when a more effective question would be, what people have in their consciousness that creates the paradigms that outpicture as racism and sexism. We ask why Hitler did what he did rather than asking what was in his consciousness and that of those who followed him. Holmes said evil is the creation of our own false consciousness, and since it is useless to pray to God to stop evil. We have got to stop evil. So the invitation is to change our consciousness, right? And we do that by asking questions. Holmes said religious science is a Christian denomination. Are we? Either yay or nay. What does that mean to us today? So he says in James 4:2, it reads, "Yet you do not have because you do not ask." Do we not have a world that works because we are not yet asking the relevant questions? Curiosity truly is a superpower because it grants us access to greater depths and wellspring of awareness, but we must choose to use it. So the affirmation that he puts with this is I ask, knowing that I receive. I ask, knowing that I am evolve in the asking. I ask the question I know will change the world. Okay, so that's interesting. And this month has been interesting. An interesting dive into these questions that he is bringing up. One of the things that Akomolafe, who, if you've been listening to me anytime, I like to invoke his name. He is a man of what I call a philosopher. I'm sure he does not call himself a philosopher, but I call him a philosopher out of Nigeria. He was born, that's his origin place, but now living in India and moving to Germany. He travels the world speaking and talking about, unpacking questions such as this. And, it's really interesting to listen to his faith from the perspective of an African person who, let's see, how do I want to say it? That exists and recognizes, what do I want to say? I don't want to say postmodernity. I want to say that recognizes this connection with the universal. And he often talks about it from a Yoruba type of tradition, from out of a mythology system that is indigenous to where he is from, the connection to the land and having deities rather than just talking about this one God type of idea that we had. And often he talks about this God called Ishu, who is the trickster god. And he says that Ishu actually came with the people on the slave ships. instead of, and people, people, whether we talk about it from the standpoint of the colonizers, thought that they were playing a trick on people of color, a pontificator. Okay. He is just amazing though. Good morning, Erica. How are you, darling? He talks about it in this thing that they may have thought that they were getting something over on us, but rather than thinking of it that way, he says maybe this is by design. And he says, and what we do now is rather than, he says, there's a lot of the wrestling we do with the idea, and the wrestling is like choices between whether we're on the deck of the ship or in the hull of the ship or someplace in between. He says most people don't understand what it means to not even consider the ship, the slave ship, so to speak. And so sometimes when we think about these questions, it helps us to step away from the paradigm that has been created by somebody else. It is, as we look at and talk about racism and sexism, we're still talking about it from some level of the ship, of being aboard the ship. So how do we then take this? There is, I think it's beautiful because it takes us back to a creative process. How do we erase the paradigm that's been created, the slave ship? How do we erase that and take this idea of racism or sexism to another level? And that becomes the challenge, because as long as we are playing in the ship that was created by somebody else, is just whether we're up on board or down in the hull or whatever, with those kind of things. It's set. And so how do we either fly above or jump off? And so that becomes a question, I think, that we all can ask. When we look at the system and the structure that we are in, when we talk about capitalism, or when we talk about the isms, any of the isms here in this country, is still playing within the paradigm that has been set. Like, these are the rules, these are the pieces that you can play with. And then outside of that, we don't recognize that we can fly above that we don't have to play with their games, their toys anymore. And so that becomes sort of what, I mean, to me, is such a rich idea. Who dictates these things to us? Who gets to make those calls? And so, one of the things that I talk about all the time is, in religion and spirituality, it is not to, figure out how to play with the pieces as they've been given. How do I recognize that all of that is a game to keep me locked in a maze like a little rat going around trying to find the cheese? How do I get above that? He said, if you eat of this tree of knowledge of good and evil, then you will be like gods. So it's got to be some other level that we've got to, and so if they can trick us into believing that that the way to know God is by looking at a book, by reading and studying and all of this stuff. If they can trick you into these are the rules of the game and this is how you got to play the game. If they trick you into that, then that's the paradigm that we play in. But now wonder if we found out, man, they just gave us busy work to do. It's kind of like, when I hate to use this as an example, but I do my dogs like that. It's like, oh, I'm going to take some little chew toys or I'm going to take some little things to keep them occupied while I'm doing such and such. And so, whether it is, let me go tire them out so they're not distracting me, or let me give them this, or let me do that so that it keeps them quiet for a while. We do kids like that. At a certain point, our sacred yes or our sacred no, we've got to realize that somebody has given us a chew toy. I'm just saying, somebody, y'all, I know somebody will get mad at me for saying that. But you've been given a chew toy. And so as long as you are gnawing on that bone, as long as you are allowing the rules of the game to be set by somebody else, then that becomes what you occupy yourself with. I'm saying that there is something higher. There is some other way of approaching this that does not include you sitting there trying to memorize stuff, memorize somebody else's journey, look at what somebody else has done. Yeah, take up your cross. That doesn't mean that you gotta, do it like Beckham, follow me and do it exactly the way that I do. No, what is yours? Because all of us have our own journey to Calvary that we are making. All of us. And yours doesn't have to look exactly like that. But if you're busy trying to think that it's about somebody else's walk, you will miss your own. I'm just saying. And I'll tell you, that is that's some kind of, difficult sometimes for people to hear, because we've been trained to follow. We have been programmed that following is what we do. That is, you got to have somebody else that have said it before. You got to have somebody else that that's done it. You got to have a mold into which to pour your spirit, or else they will tell you that it's not a valid thing. But once you get out beyond that, once you go beyond that and you see like, whoa, and in my meditation, there is this, I don't want to say it's a spirit. There is a something. So I talked the other day about the people that I have traveling with me. And I get their energy and how big it is and how sure and strong it is. But then there is something that is there that is changeless, timeless peace. Oh my gosh. And it's there. And I try my best to lose myself in it. Let me pour myself into that. Cause just kind of following along the same lines that other people follow along. Yeah. As long as somebody else is setting the rules for you, that's as far as you gonna get. So this thing of constantly just wrestling with what has been given to you. Is somebody giving you a chew toy? I'm just saying, just for your consideration. If you are gnawing on that bone still, and I know there will be more, look, and this is a seed that might not come up for another year or two, right? It might not come up because it may not be in your interest. Or you might say, oh, get this, let's drop this and move on because, what she said, right? I don't know. But just consider that maybe, maybe that, there's something else out there for you. I certainly am pursuing what else is out there for me. And I will tell you, there is a comfort sometimes in stepping back into the known. It is easy to walk in the known because what we know from the known is that certain things are going to be predictable that will happen. You'll get your paycheck on the day that you're supposed to get your paycheck, or you will, in other people's estimation, be okay, all right, there is something about the known that is, the temple of somebody else's familiar, right? Of your familiar. And you can, a lot of people dwell in that. But I'm after some juicy life, right? I'm after juicy. Juicy. There is a part of us, of all of us, that die without ever having lived. And we're so busy chasing after something. The chew toy that we've been told was what we're supposed to have or accomplish or whatever. We're so busy chasing after that, but that we fail to actually live when we have the chance. And so what does that look like for you? What is that, and it's one of the questions that I ask myself, right? So, talking about why is the sky blue, right? Is that, right? Here we got a light gray. I don't know. I mean, but it becomes, asking yourself the questions about what it would look like. There is in Greek mythology a god called Pan, Pan. And Pan was always this god of how do I want to classify him? He was very earthy. He was about a good time, sex, music, a wayward god in that there was nothing about. As a matter of fact, when you look at a lot of these historical figures or gods that they used to talk about, most of them were not trying to be good. There was not this notion of righteousness, of purity, and all of that stuff that we see in a lot of our religious practices. They did what they did. Poseidon, if he was over the waters and the oceans, he was, he used his power there. Or if you had, I'm trying to think of some of the ones that I'm familiar with. But they ruled over if it was the underworld, or if it was the, Morpheus, the god of sleep, or if it was, I forget what the one of passion is, but it just made me reach for my mouth. But they just did what they did, and they were true to what it was that they were true to, instead of making it seem like it had to be so good. As a matter of fact, in that book, Jitterbug Perfume, when Jesus arrived on the scene, is such a good little conversation in there, because they had this conversation about this dude named Jesus with the big daddy that lived in the sky, and they was talking about, I'm gonna whoop his ass. That was kind of what they talked about in this Bible, in the book Jitterbug Perfume, and it just kind of gave me this like, oh wow, right? And the wonderful thing is that these stories come out of the mind or the unction of someone. So, and one of the a really good book that I read was by Sue Monk Kidd, I do believe it is, who wrote or rewrote the story of Jesus from a standpoint of, of not deifying him in the after fact, but rather walking alongside of him as he walked. And it was just such a powerful reorientation of perspective about something that later on, as it was written, because the stories and the gospels and all of that stuff about Jesus was not written while he walked, but rather some hundreds of years after his crucifixion. And so when you start, like we always say, if I could be a fly on the wall, when you reorient your perspective, what do you see? Could you imagine? I mean, just like let's say, 100 years from now, somebody looks at your life and says, wow, they put you in, just like what Raymond just did yesterday. He talked about his heroes, and he put down Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and then he put the milk guy in there with him. So it becomes this thing of, depending upon who you ask, the heroes sometimes change. Now, if somebody were to put you in in the realm of being heroic in their perception, what might they be saying about you? What is it that you would stir up in them? Would you be like Pan, like the god of pleasure, or the hedonist, or would you be the puritanical, or would you be somebody that caused people to think and question, like a Socrates did, right? Or are you living a life that somebody might like emulate or aspire to, or even talk about in that realm? I mean, when I think about say for instance, the journey I'm on, I think about Mary Magdalene, who says, I am the whore and the holy woman, right? I mean, she was like saying, all that is contained in me. So to walk in the authenticity of what it is that drives us is a powerful thing. As a matter of fact, it then becomes noteworthy, because what we do is not just trying to get people to go and walk the way I do, walk like an Egyptian or something like that, but rather to find their own truth. Right? Jesus said, to this end was I born. Martin Luther King said that, he was compelled to do what he was doing. It wasn't as if it was like, I chose this as let me look at the possible career paths and then choose this one here. Right? Gandhi, was it that Gandhi felt like he had to, to be a liberator? Or is this, or it did the path, what's before you is for you. Did the path reveal itself in the process? And so if you are on the ship and allowing that to be the the whole thing, the how it plays out for you, if that is whether you're on the upper deck or in the hull or whatever, if that's the only thing that you are concerned about, if you're chewing on a chew toy or in a maze, if that's the only thing that you are concerned about, you're in the masses, you're in with everybody else. But sometimes we've got to ask ourselves, what does it mean to step out, right? What does it mean to live from a space of not of seeing the game for the game that it is? I think that is so good. Now let me pivot for a second here, because one of the things that when I thought about what I liked so much about what Biden did in the State of the Union address, one of the things that he did is that he recognized that this is the game I've been playing all my life. We are in the arena. And the moment somebody threw him through, like they called them hecklers, but the moment somebody threw the ball his way, he caught it. And then he says, all right, here's what you've just done. You just brought up this, whether it was Medicaid and Social Security. You just brought this up, right? You threw the ball. You put it out there. It's like being in a court of law. I wasn't introducing this, but now that you threw the ball at me, we're going to play with this. And I'm going to make you make a commitment right here on national television that we are not going to mess with this. This is going to be sacrosanct over here. This is not going to be part of our play toys anymore. Can we get an agreement on that? So he used the arena that he was in and manipulated the conversation where they thought that they were going to do something to him. He took it and he changed. I loved it. I was just like, I was like, yay. And he kept on, like, let's get it. let's get this a commitment right here. Let's put it out there like this. You ain't gonna clown me, because I know that I'm on the ship. And on the ship, there are certain things that are in operation, and I get to choose what it is that I'm playing on. So if, say for instance, if I'm only playing by the rules that you've been said, or if I'm playing it was good, because one of the things that, I just for consideration, I mean, I'm not trying to tell you how to think about the ways that he played this, right? But there are a lot of people who are playing the defense, right? And not realizing, it's not jujitsu, is it taekwondo that uses your own strength against you, so that it's not even like you've got to throw the punch, but you let the momentum of what somebody's chi carry them. So all you're doing is artfully moving with what is going on, so that you are using that. And as you use it, the person gets themselves all tangled up and into a knot. And so a lot of times what we do is we take a defensive posture. Oh, you're going to throw the punch. And so now I'm ducking and weaving, and I'm feeling like I got to throw a punch back at you, or doing whatever I've got to do in order to respond to what you're doing. But he used what they were doing against them to do something. And I think that is one of the beautiful things that we can learn something from. If we are, and I'm just saying this because to me applies to so many different things, right? Am I going to be your victim? Because that's not the game I want to play, right? I'm not going to play a game where I'm going to constantly be a victim and make it seem as though you are my victimizer. That just doesn't work for me. So if you are in a relationship or a job or a situation where you feel like you are constantly trying to come up or trying to find, maybe what you need to do is to change the game. I mean, I'm just saying. Prayerfully consider that. And then what would that look like? Right? What would it look like if you decided that I am no longer going to be a victim of the world I see, but rather to know that I was put here? That's the beauty of what Bayo was talking about in that, in the thing, the essay that I was talking about, and the way that he talked about that God traveled on the ship, that we are not the victim, that there was no other way to get that mass migration of blackness to this country. And this country needed us, right? Maybe we can look at it that the Americas needed us. Not because somebody wanted to enslave us, but because without us, where would the soul of America be? So as long as we're playing in their ideology and playing the victim role, that will be the experience. But wonder if, like Bayo said, that the trickster God was there and he knew that there were, and wait a minute. It's kind of like the story that I read. This woman, she was one of them holy roller women. She lived right next door to an atheist. This man that there was, we all know those people. And she's always praying. Why don't she quit with all that damn praying, right? So, she going around her house praying out loud, and the man was sick of hearing her praying. Anyway, one day she started praying and she was like, God, I'm going to thank you today because I need some food in my house, God. I need some soup in my cupboard. I need milk in my refrigerator. I need eggs for my breakfast. And she was just praying up a storm. And this guy thought, you know what? This woman and her damn praying, she always in the midst of praying. So he goes to the store. And he buys all the stuff that she done talked about she wanted. The steak that she wanted, the eggs that she wanted. He went and bought all of this stuff. And then he goes over there. He comes back home. He goes and he takes it to the darn thing and sits it on her porch and rings the doorbell and goes and hides, right? And so when she comes out and she sees the stuff, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. She was praising, just shouting out loud, right? All happy and excited. And the man jumps out, right? He jumps out of the bushes and he says, God didn't send that. He says, I did. And she was like, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. He said, no, you don't understand. I got the receipt right here. God didn't send that. I sent that. And she says, God is so good. He says, so he done brought me groceries and got the devil to pay for it. I thought that was such a cute story. And so when you think about it, if what America needed was you and I, if what the Americas needed, they sitting up there thinking that somehow they got something over on you and me. And they got the devil to pay for it. They got exactly what needed to happen and got the devil to pay for it. And so if we could stop being in playing the victim role, maybe clean our eyes off and look at it from a different perspective, we might see something different and amazing. I mean, it is, what's your positioning? What's your positioning? Are you looking at this from being down on the floor, from being locked out, from a place of victimhood? Or are you a fly on the wall that is seeing a bigger picture than what is possible if you're right there, or if you're one of the pieces on the board? I don't know, but I know that, a change in perspective sometimes is exactly what we need. So I'm grateful for, the things that we can read into that causes us to look at it differently. I think it's so beautiful when we can do that. And I just don't want you to be caught up, with the chew toy. I don't want you to be caught up in the maze. I want you to recognize that, that your life is juicy. It's a juiciness to it. And it has things that only you, right? That only you are able to bring to it. So whatever that may be, I mean, so sometimes it's a little Cajun flavor. Sometimes it's a little, we talk about the different mixes that you can get in it. I mean, there's so many different things that we can add into this pot. Good morning, Rodney. How are you, dear? There's so many different things that we can add into this pot if we just would, just consider it. And sometimes, I've had to back up and try on some stuff. I'm still trying on some stuff, right? So while I'd love to tell you about all the mythical characters and all the roles that they play, I'm still, that's still like something that I'm kind of swimming in that soup of. But I know that as we look at it, the ways in which we bring this story to light, this puritanical way, is not the only way. It's not the only way. So, I'm grateful for this, y'all. I'm so grateful, so grateful, so grateful. So just consider, just consider and say yes to the juicy. And if it's not juicy now, right? Maybe your yes will make it be so. I'm gonna tell y'all this one last thing, and then I think I'm gonna jump off of here. I think this is the last thing. This guy I know, a friend, he's not even a friend. He's somebody that I know. He's an acquaintance, whatever. He calls me up one day and he asked me, he said, I love when stuff like this happens. It was kind of out of the blue. And he asked me, he said, Sandra, he says, my wife is struggling. And, and I was like, okay. He was like, he said, don't get me wrong. He says, I love my wife. He says, and he kept telling me about how much he loved his wife. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, good. So he wasn't calling me to flirt. I think he wanted me to know that. And he says, but it's something, he says, she needs something in her life, and I don't exactly know what that is or how to give it to her. And I said, okay. And he says, so I was wondering if I could get you to go hang out with my wife. And I was like, hang out with your wife? He was like, yeah, he says, don't worry about it. He says, I'll pay for it. He says, if you want to, he says, if you want to go out, if you want to, He says, whatever it is you want to do, he says, it's on me. He says, I just want you to hang out with her. And I was like, oh, okay. At the time, I was just like, okay, I could go. So, anyway, he set it up that I was going to meet her for dinner at this restaurant, a restaurant that I like, Fire. We went to Fire. I just, okay. I was like, because I didn't want, whatever. Fire was where I chose. And so I met her there. And when she came in, I was thinking to myself, like, oh, okay. A very homely woman. Just, very homely. And so, y'all, I, I, I'm like thinking to myself, I don't know exactly how this is supposed to work, but okay. So she sits down and can I get my margarita? I'm about to order. Like, like he was saying, he was setting this up like this. So I ordered my margarita. And y'all, I will tell y'all, I come out here and I talk to you guys, and I'm not in edit mode, but I recognize that I am, I'm recording this, and this is here for whatever, whenever. But y'all talk about somebody I started drinking, and I started talking to this woman, and I showed my ass. And I wasn't out of character, but I was at the same time not trying to sugarcoat anything. I was like, apparently he saw something in me that he thought was worthy of his, like the exposure to it would do something wonderful and good for his wife. And in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm about to set this chick free, because she came in there looking like she was apologizing for being on the planet. When I'm talking about homely, she seemed like she was apologizing, like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm here. And I'm like thinking like, oh, girlfriend, let me. And I spent the next couple of hours, and I'm talking about full entertainment mode. Let me entertain you. Let me help you understand that your presence, my presence, our presence here is on purpose, and it's a freaking blessing. And if don't nobody else know it but you gotta show it, right? You gotta, if you happy and you know it, then your life should surely show it. You gotta show it. And so now I tell you, I have not been back out with that woman since. But now when I see images of her, I can tell that she is a lot. She's not the person she was. And I'm not going to put that all on me, because he might have lined up 10 different women, and they might have had discussions or whatever after the fact. I don't know what the whole point of it was, but I know that there was a transformation that happened. And I was so honored to be one of the people that he asked to spend some time with his wife. And I thought to myself, I got to be doing something right. So y'all get off, figure out if you on the ship and that's the paradigm that you are operating in, because you can't figure out how to fly above or jump off or not even be on there in the first place, fine. But know when you are playing and you using the pieces on somebody else's board, at least know that. And then, to thine own self be true. All right, with that, I'm going to go because I'm over my time. Y'all, I get to be back on here at 11 o'clock with Dr. Brown. And I hope and trust that whatever it was, that we got, you got exactly what it was that you were expecting to get, or more. Or more, or more, whatever that may mean. So, peace and blessings to you, Walker. Thank you for walking through this with me this morning. Blessings to you. I will, like I said, be back on at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with Dr. Brown. If you are watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, ring the button, or, get notifications when I'm back on. I appreciate you guys being here with me. But I'm also broadcasting over Facebook Live, where I've got conversation going on as well. So I am wishing you an amazing Thursday, trusting that, that you are going for juicy. All right, go for juicy. All right, I'll see you either at 11 o'clock, or I'll see you tomorrow morning, like 8:15ish.